Hello all, I'm Sai and you're watching The Book Dragon. In today's video, I'm bringing to you a short spoiler-free review of The 40 Rules of Love by Elif Shafak. Now, this is a book which is in between genres, so I cannot categorize whether this is a historical fiction or philosophical book or a literary fiction, but it has elements of all these three categories or genres put together. The author also has a lot of books in her backlist. I'm very much interested in getting to them. So without any further ado, let's get into the various sections of the review right away. Starting with the plot, we have our main character, Ella Rubinstein, who's nearly 40 now, and she's a homemaker who takes care of her husband and 3 children. Now, since Ella is in her 40s, she has this idea in her mind that she does not have that much of a purpose in her life except her family, and also she has come to a mindset that anything which comes forward after the age of 40 in her life is not going to be that much exciting, and she just has to make her way through life and accept things as they are. During this time, she's also working for a literary agency through which she receives this book to proofread called Sweet Blasphemy, and coincidentally what happens is everything that Ella has in her mind seems to reflect as such in the book also, and it feels like this book was written specifically for her alone. So what she does is she tries to find the author of the book and sends them a mail, and the author also replies back, and they have this conversation going on, and Ella starts to rethink and see her life from a really different perspective, and she takes various decisions. Also, a huge portion of the plot takes place inside the book that Ella is reading, which is Sweet Blasphemy. So definitely when it comes to the plot, it is a very strong plot that has a lot of subplots also going on, which all lead towards a certain climax, and the way in which the author has intertwined the real story which we are seeing here and the book that Ella is reading is really good. Moving on to the characters, for a 350-page long book, this book has a lot many characters, and I'm sure each and every character that the author has written is of a lot importance. In the forefront, we have 4 main characters who are Ella herself and Aziz, who's the writer of this book named Sweet Blasphemy, and the 2 main characters inside the book who are Rumi, who's a very famous spiritual leader, and Shams of Tabriz, who's a person that comes and joins Rumi in the story. Also, apart from these 4 characters, Ella's family of the other people, her husband and her 3 children, also play a really pivotal role in the story. All the other characters in the book actually are from Sweet Blasphemy, which is the book inside the book itself. And in that book, we have characters from different professions and different walks of life. We have the character of a teacher, a prostitute, a beggar, a drunk, a guard, Rumi's family, and many more such people. We switch between the perspectives of all these different characters while the story is being narrated, but the continuity of the story is in such a way that while we switch perspectives, we don't go and experience the same thing from different people's point of view. We just see the continuation of the story from different points of view and how that character is seeing the things that are happening. So it's definitely a good style of narration using the characters. Moving on to the writing, which I think is a really flavorful element for this book if you ask me, because we are dealing with 2 stories, one being in our present day world in 2008 and the other being in the 13th century, and the difference in the language that the author has provided while she's narrating the story in the part where it happens in 2008 and the story that is happening in the 13th century is totally different, and the tone shift that we see in her writing when she's narrating both these stories is just so good. But in the beginning of the book, the writing is very mediocre, and I just felt like it is such a famous book, but the writing seems so dull in the beginning. But after this icebreaker happens and when Ella contacts the author, the writing style of the author also changes drastically, and we can see the proper shift in the way she's articulating the stories, both the story of Ella and the story of Rumi and Shams to us while she's writing it, and the dialogues that she exchanges using these characters is also very different because people do not converse in the same way right now as they used to converse in the 13th century, right? So it's definitely going to be a lot more formal when it comes to reading the parts of the book which involve Sweet Blasphemy and the parts of the book which actually involve the main characters through whom we are knowing the story. So as a whole, the writing is not that great, but the shift that the author presents, making use of the power of her language, is really good. So the writing in this one is also pretty strong. Moving on to the setup, I usually talk about the world building when it comes to most of the book. In this one also world building is there, but I'm saying it as a setup because we switch between the 2 timelines, right? So it happens sometimes in the 1200s and sometimes in 2008, but both of these times are just presented to us visually really well by the author. While she's talking about the 13th century, that is the 1200s, the entire story happens in the eastern half of the world, and the present time, that is 2008, is happening in the western half of the world. The difference that she shows geographically as well as culturally between these 2 stories is really eminent, and while she was narrating the story of Shams of Tabriz and Rumi together in the eastern world, it was very vivid, and I was just able to experience the things that they were experiencing. It is definitely a book that you can read during any part of the year and just feel the vibes that it is giving properly. And also, if you're a fan of the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, I'm sure you will love this because it has this very similar tone to that. It is also philosophical, so it is a lot more similar to The Alchemist than you can think, and if you like that, I'm sure you will like this also, especially when it comes to the setup. Finally, talking about the pacing, I can say that the pacing of this one is slow and consistent. Okay, it doesn't feel like the story is going so fast suddenly or so slow suddenly. From page 1 to page 350, the entire story is slow paced, and also during a huge chunk of the middle portion of the book, that is from page 101 to, I can say, page 300 or 330, it just feels like there's no end point for the way in which the author is actually narrating the story. Until you reach the last 15 or 20 pages of the book, I'm sure you'll not be able to determine how the story is going to end. It is definitely a predictable ending, but the amount of closure that the author provides at the end of the story and the things that she leaves open for the reader to explore and imagine is definitely something which was very bold and very necessary, if you ask me, for a book like this one. It is a book about self-realization and putting yourself first as a priority if you want to love others. If you're a person who's trying to read a story like that one, please do pick this up because it will definitely fulfill your craving for such a story. So when it comes to the final ratings, I thought of rating the book 4 stars, but there are some revelations which happen towards the last 20 to 30 pages of the book, and also the amount of closure and the amount of non-closure that the author provided towards the end, which made me pump it up to 5 stars. So yeah, that's it for today. If you did find this review useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel because I publish new videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.